you. It's not a smart move, Jackie. Larry Bird, you ain't. Now get in range and give yourself a chance.
Yeah. Tonight's movie, as you already know, because you clicked on this, really, is a little throwback to 1982, Slumber Party Massacre. I first saw this movie when I was in high school. My friend Joel had gotten his license the summer before junior year. So by spring of junior year, me, him, and Tom would go to Hollywood Video pretty much every weekend. And we just started renting horror movies. I know like this was my introduction to horror movies, but this was a time when it was really, just was kind of our thing, was to rent horror movies and go back to Joel's basement and watch them. And it was kind of, that was actually kind of the down point of the night, was when we'd get to his basement and actually watch the horror movies. Because the highlight, the fun part was going down to Hollywood Video and looking at movies and being in public and hoping to run into somebody on a Friday night who would be like, hey, we know of a party going on over there, or this is going on over here. And that basically never happened. But there was always that chance and that hope. And the Hollywood Video was right next to Cub Foods back before it was Winco. So you could hit the Hollywood Video, get a movie or two or three, and then head over to Winco, get yourself some snacks, some sodas, and then and hopefully between the two places you run into somebody who knew of something going on. But usually that didn't happen. Back to Joel's basement we went, and we would watch movies, and this was one of the little gems we found. And this is, not only is this a movie that made us like want to keep finding like a certain kind of movie like slashers, this is also the movie that I think really just made slashers my favorite subgenre of horror, because it kind of nails it. And this is the one where it kind of just showed us like, well, that's what we want to see. We want to see girls get naked and get killed. Sounds kind of evil, but it's not. It was therapeutic. You know, we were three dudes getting rejected by girls left and right. It's high school. You're not cool enough for this. You're not cool enough for that. Well, let's go watch people have parties. Let's have people that actually have parties. Let's see the parties get ruined. And that's what the slasher movies kind of offer. This little, like, I don't know, the cool kids always get killed. And when you're not the cool kid, when you're me watching the movie, it's nice. It's like, what are you doing Friday night? I'm going to go watch the cool kids die. And I don't have to kill them. I can watch it on my TV. And we discovered this little gem along the way. There's 3 of them. It's a trilogy. I actually didn't see the second one until much later. I think when I bought it, like way later. But the first one's good. Third one's pretty good too. The second one sucks. I think it's terrible. It's just stupid. And some people would probably, I don't think, when people watch this movie, I don't think they realize what they have. Because this movie is actually really good. Like, I watched it again yesterday, getting ready for this. And I've decided I'm going to make a bold claim. This very well could be, let me rephrase that. This is the best slasher movie ever made. And I will defend that. Because this is one of those where it's like, when people ask me my top 10 favorite horror movies, I'm like, I'll name a few. And anytime I put this movie into that top 10, they're like, I get like these smirks, like, what? Yeah, okay. Like an eye roll or a laugh or a what. It's like, this is, because it does have a cheesy title, Slumber Party Massacre. But it's also, if a movie has massacre in the title, preferably when it's the last word, I'm on board. I'm like, oh, what is this? Okay, I'm watching it. You got massacre in the title. You can't go wrong. But I think people sleep on this one because, and it's weird because it gets looked at as like, oh, this is, like I was reading some reviews on IMDb, and it's like, a lot of people were, oh, this movie's good. I love a good 80s throwback. It's not really a throwback because it was made in the 80s. But I love a good, it's funny, it's cheesy and blah. But I was watching, I was like, this isn't really cheesy. It's like, because it gets painted that way. I'm not sure why, because it's actually a really solid film. I mean, it's all the dots connect. There's not a lot of fat. There's not a lot of lag. I mean, when it starts out, all right, I'm just gonna go into the movie. Although, but before I go into the movie, I will point out, and it is kind of funny, that Rita Mae Brown, who wrote the screenplay, originally, apparently she wrote it as like, it was supposed to be a spoof on slasher movies. And then when she submitted it, the company, I forget the name, damn it, they were like, they wanted to make it. And it's funny because it is 1982, but this movie, it checks all the boxes of all the classic tropes that are now classic. It's weird because this is so early in the slasher genre. I mean, we got Texas Chainsaw Massacre, Halloween, Friday the 13th Part 1, and maybe Part 2. Black Christmas. There's not a lot. It's a weird time based on how many slasher movies were made to be like, we should do a spoof on a movie that doesn't really have, like doing a spoof in 1989 would have been like, okay, that makes sense. But this movie, it really ended up being like the playbook, the handbook to slasher movies. This is like when I watched Scream the first time, I thought, it's like, wow, Kelvin Williamson, the guy who made that movie, and went on to write a lot of stuff. That guy was really prolific for about 10 years. Like, he was on everything, it seemed like. And because I really like Kevin Williamson, his writing and his screenplays that he does, even Dawson Creek, I was on board with. I used to watch that show. It's like, his dialogue was great. That time, I'm getting off topic a little bit, but I wanted to rant about Kevin Williamson for a little bit because he was so good. But he also was like kind of riding the coattails because there was something that happened. Well, I know what happened. Quentin Tarantino happened, and Quentin Tarantino kind of gave this, like, his screenplays. He was the guy that went dialogue hard, to where the dialogue didn't necessarily have to support the plot, and the characters would like go off on different like tangents of pop culture going on at the time. And it wasn't necessary to the story at all, but it did humanize the characters and made them more relatable and made you like them more. And it was weird situations where you'd have hitmen or robbers that were like having conversations similar to like what you and your friends would have. And then like Kevin Smith grabbed that and ran with it and did like Clerks and Mallrats with lots of like Marvel and Star Wars references, and they were good. And it's kind of funny because Tarantino would take a storyline that would like work without the dialogue and still be a really good movie, but he put the cool dialogue in it. Where Kevin Smith, and I'm not saying this does not come from a place of hate, because I love Kevin Smith. He's one of my favorite writers. And like I love, like he's inspired me, stuff that I write. It's like it goes back to, like, it's borrowed and inspired by Kevin Smith and Tarantino, because those two are the original. They're the original dogs. But Kevin Smith movies, the storyline wouldn't go very far without his dialogue. His dialogue needs, or his story needs that dialogue for the story to work. Because a lot of the storylines, they're not like original, but he'll throw in some like weird, goofy, and like extreme where you're like, whoa. But like the dialogue ties it all together and lets him get away with a lot of stuff that if you didn't have the dialogue, Kevin Smith movies would just not work. Whereas Tarantino movies without the dialogue, and I feel bad because I'm behind on Tarantino movies. The last movie, I think Kill Bill 2 was the last one I watched. I haven't watched Django Unchained or Hateful Eight or his newest one, which I plan to watch pretty soon. But, so I don't know. I might be speaking out of turn. I'm mainly going off of like Reservoir Dogs, True Romance, Pulp Fiction, which I just watched last night. Still awesome. And Kill Bill 1 and 2, Death Proof. But there's a thing where like Tarantino's movies would work with or without the dialogue. The dialogue just, it enhances it and makes it better. But I think Kevin Smith's movies, without that dialogue, it would be a train wreck. You'd be like, I've already seen this. And that's not a knock. I hope that didn't sound like a knock on Kevin Smith. But that is not the Kevin I was trying to talk about. The Kevin I was trying to talk about is Kevin Williamson, who came out after them and made the Scream movies. And I remember thinking that, like, man, this guy must have just rented like every slasher movie from the 80s and just studied them and put them all together. And then he managed to pull out this script, which like just puts it all together and breaks it down, because Scream really is kind of it's a slasher deconstruction movie. And it's very blatant about it, but at the same time you watch it and you don't really realize that it is. But it totally is. But after watching Slumber Party Massacre again, I kind of feel like, he could have watched every 80s slasher movie, or all he really had to do was go and watch Slumber Party Massacre. Because this movie is the blueprint. It's the rule book, it's the formula. It has everything. It's got all the tropes. It's got, like, it just basically just like, this is a slasher movie. And if you look at every slasher movie made after it, I mean, they all follow this, and it came out so early. It's like this, I mean, it predates, it's 2 years before Nightmare on Elm Street. And it's just like, yeah, if you're thinking about writing a slasher screenplay, go watch Slumber Party Massacre, and then watch it again, and then take notes and watch every part, because like really look at it, because it starts out, now we're going into the actual film, and there are spoilers in this, and you can watch this on Tubi for free with ads. So if you haven't seen it, this is the point where you need to turn this off, especially if you're planning to write a slasher screenplay, and go watch this movie. Because, all right, it starts out just showing like kind of a suburban neighborhood. It's got the paper boy delivering the paper, riding, and then it's got Trish. Trish is our main character. She wakes up to the radio. Her alarm goes off, and it's funny because it introduces the killer in the first scene through the radio. The radio goes off saying, or the alarm goes off saying that the killer, Russ Thorne, and I'm going to point this out now, at some point during this review I am going to call him Rex Thorne, because for some reason I've always wanted to call him Rex Thorne, but his name is Russ Thorne. Both are really dumb names, and they're hilarious names, but my mind always thinks Rex Thorne, and I don't know why. And it got even a little more confusing when I was younger, because there was an actor who actually died recently named Rip Torn. I was like, well, Rip Torn, wasn't he the killer in Slumber Party Massacre? No, that was Rex Thorne. No, that's Russ Thorne. But Russ Thorne, the crazy killer who killed people in 1969, and he had escaped. So it gives the viewer that little taste, but her like just waking up and getting ready for school, she like turns the alarm off. Actually, no, the alarm's going off, and she gets up, like in the first 3 minutes of this movie, we get some boobage as she changes her clothes. And the radio's still going, she doesn't turn it off. It's still going, but she leaves the room. So every time the killer is kind of getting close to her, something happens. So like in this case, she leaves the room. She gets ready, and she looks around her room and like throws a Barbie doll in the trash. I've listened to podcasts about this, and they're like, oh, that's a symbol. That symbolizes her growing up in adulthood. And it's like, no, she knows her parents are going out of town. I think maybe she's just embarrassed to have a Barbie doll laying around. Who knows? Not everything is a sign. I love how I'm like the person who like, I watch these movies and I look for symbols and signs, but then I shit on everybody else's. Like, that's not a symbol of that. That just, that's coincidence. You're reading into it too much. And then I'll be like, well, maybe, I don't know. I don't have a good example for why that's funny, but it is. So then she goes downstairs. Her parents are they're leaving. They're in the car. Oh, they're almost in the car. And the neighbor, what was his name? Mr. Contant. Mr. Contant kind of shows up like, which is kind of weird because I didn't notice it until watching this movie like a million times. I've actually not seen this movie that many times, but I've seen it several. But the parents are leaving. They're warning her. It's like, okay, be careful and don't do any, you know, that stuff as they're getting ready to leave. Mr. Contant kind of shows up behind, and she's like, because the Barbie doll, it's the symbolism, allegedly, of now she's older and she's a woman, but then she makes it a point to say, Mom and Dad, don't worry, I'm 18, I'm gonna be okay, you guys can go out of town. So, but then after that, to back that up, Mr. Contant is like, don't worry, I'll keep an eye on the girls. And it's like, she's the only child, there's nobody, girls, they're not girls, it's like this, but then the parents don't even question that, so it's like, well, do they know that she's planning to have a slumber party? Do they not care? And maybe the parents do know that she's having a slumber party, but why does Mr. Contant know she's having a slumber party? Or is that just a fuck up? So the parents leave, and Trish goes to school. And that's where we meet Jeff and Neil, the two. I'm not sure who they're supposed to be. I mean, I get it, they're two guys, and they know Trish and her friends, but they're not, like, neither of them are boyfriends of any of Trish's, like, little clique. But I don't know, because I mean, we meet them when they're talking, like, somehow, like, everybody knows about the slumber party, even though it's not, like, it's kind of funny how, like, the party's like this big deal, but there's only like 5 people that are supposed to be attending it, including Trish. But the guys, they see a woman like working on the telephone line. I don't know, she's doing something with phones, and she's got her phone van parked out front, and Jeff starts hitting on her. Like, you know, like, because this lady's probably like, I don't know, mid-20s. So I was like, well, why wouldn't she want to date a high school student? And I'm kind of assuming they're not seniors, because usually senior year gets made a big deal. They make a big deal out of it in movies, whether it's horror movie or whatever. It's always like, oh, senior year, we're seniors. Usually they throw that senior part in your face. So these guys could have been like juniors. This guy's hitting on a grown woman. And then, he's like really like, actually kind of, like when he gets shot down, he's kind of like, oh man, that's a bummer. I'm never going to meet anybody. I mean, he doesn't sulk about it too much, but there was enough, like, it's like he wasn't just like being cute with her and flirting. It was like, he like really thought it was going to go somewhere. It was kind of like, it didn't go anywhere. And his friend kind of gives him shit. But then they go on, they walk away, and she gets it back in her van. Russ Thorne is in her van waiting for her with his ridiculous drill. I don't know what kind of drill that is. The blade's like this long. It's like a concrete drill. And where did he get it? That's the weird part, because he escaped from a insane asylum. And like I don't know, he's wearing a jean jacket and a shirt and jeans, and he's got this drill. It's like, where do you get all this stuff? Especially because like he just escaped and he's well equipped. But I mean, not that we need a lot of backstory on him. I'm surprised there hasn't been like a prequel or a remake for this movie. So the phone woman goes into her van and gets killed. She gets drilled, I think, in the face. And then we flip over to, we switch to the gym scene where the girls are playing basketball in an all-girl PE class. And the coach is a girl. Like, she's not like manly at all, but she still kind of looks like your stereotypical like lesbian PE teacher. Maybe it's because she's kind of, I don't know, the way she gives, I don't know. So it's like, ah, there's your lesbian PE. Or maybe because I had a lesbian PE teacher when I was in middle school. Or at least, I don't know. There were two. I don't know why one seemed more lesbian than the other because they both had the same haircut. One just had darker hair. They just had like these like curly mullets, which the Coach Anna does not have that haircut. There's just something, I don't know, maybe there's just something about being a PE teacher that's very lesbian-y. Or it's just like, I don't know. Maybe I'm going off on a tangent. Maybe I shouldn't have went there. I apologize to all gym teachers and lesbians. After PE, basketball PE, and this scene is kind of important because it's setting up, well, one, it's important to show they're in PE because when gym is over, or it's that point, they have to go in the locker room where they all shower and get naked, and we get more boobage. And you got to remember that when I saw this movie, there was not the internet and the free porn like this. That's what I left out earlier. This was why we went for slasher movies, because it wasn't just slashers killing the cool guys and the cool girls and the partying and stuff. We got to see some naked girls. And this 80s movies, and I've made reference to this a lot, I know, but in the 80s, all the girls, for the most part, looked different. Like, per movie. It's like you didn't have 3 characters that looked the same and one that looked different. Like, you could tell them all apart. In this movie, even though it's the beginning, so you can't as much, because it's like, oh, it's just a bunch of naked girls, and I don't know which character is which, so that's kind of a bummer. It's definitely more fun the second time. It's like, oh, that's her. All right, so that's 2 nudity moments, which is funny because in IMDb, if you look at the rating, they have a funny rating system on nudity, but for this movie it says moderate because there isn't actually any sex in this movie. But for Hellraiser, it says severe, which there's like no nudity in Hellraiser. There's a little bit, like you can see the woman. Now I don't remember her name, like the evil woman with the gym teacher haircut. You can see, like I think you can see her ass in like it's like a love-making scene with her and the brother. And that's pretty much it. I used to joke to myself, like, well, maybe it's severe because when you see him, not only is he naked, he's got no skin. You can see his organs and skeleton. Like, to me, that would make sense. That's some severe nudity. It's like, I can see the guy's kidneys. That's too much. Cover that up, yo. Valerie's the new girl in school, and she, I don't know if the other girls don't like her. Trish doesn't have a problem with her, but Valerie also lives next door to Trish. Not that that makes them friends by any means, but it's like a means to, like, well, you live next door, you want to come over to our slumber party? But Diane, one of the friends, the girls' names, Trish, Diane, Jackie, Kim, and Linda. But she's like, I don't know, Diane has it out for her. She has some kind of problem with her. I don't know, I think she just feels threatened by her, because Valerie really is the hottest girl in this movie, and she's the new girl, and Diane's like, well, I used to be the hottest, now this one's here. So she's talking shit, and it's really funny because, like, she's talking shit, and they're all locker apart. They're literally, there's lockers between them, but Valerie's on the other side. She's like 4 feet away. She can hear everything. And so, like, as they're leaving, Valerie's by the door, and Trish sees her, and she's like, hey, I was just wondering, do you want to come to my slumber party tonight? And Valerie's like, no, it's probably not a good, I got some stuff that I got to do, so it's not really a good night for me. And she's like, okay. And then Trish goes back to her friend. She's like, I think she heard us. Like, oh, you do? You think? You're right there. You know, we were talking shit about that girl 3 feet away from us. I think she heard us. Yeah. It's not like, I think she was spying. It wasn't even like that. It was like, yeah, she heard you. You're right there. So after the locker room scene, they're in the parking lot. They're all kind of departing and leaving. And they ask Linda if she's going to be able to make it or not. She's like, I don't know. I got a big test I got to study for. It's kind of funny. It's like, how hard do you got to study? I think it's Friday. When's your test? Monday? You have to start studying on Friday? I'm going to study for 3 days straight. I don't know. It's pretty close. I might be able to make it, or I have to study for 60 hours. I'm not sure. But then Linda realized she forgot her book, like one of her school books. So she goes back into the school and everybody else keeps going. And Linda runs into Rex Thorne and his drill. And see, I did it. I knew I was going to do it. Russ Thorne drills her in the arm, in the eye. That's another thing is that I've heard through like podcasts that review this movie is that Rex, and it does make sense because that like Russ's drill symbolizes his dick. And it's kind of funny because a lot of times when they do show him when he's about to kill somebody, it's from behind where he's got his legs spread and he's got the drill like pointed down. So from behind, it's like showing his large, his large piece. Where it's like, oh, he's gonna drill that girl with this piece. And so, long story short, he kills Linda with his piece. But the other girls don't know about it. But that does get Linda out of the way because they never mention Linda again. But this is an example of the movie covering the bases of Linda before going back to get the book, she said, I don't know if I'm going to be able to make it. So she was already kind of written off from the rest of the movie. So her getting killed, and it covered the base of nobody being like, oh, I wonder whatever happened to Linda. Where's Linda? It's like, because they already knew. And Linda also, here's a rule that Scream pointed out that we don't break. Linda said, I'm going to go back and get my book. I'll catch up with you guys later. And then she died. So next, Coach Jana drives home. And something I hadn't really noticed before. Oh, this is a weird part. Which it connects with this though. Because when Linda goes in the building to get her book, it shows like the phone van is there where Russ killed the girl. They later show that Russ took her somehow in broad daylight. He dragged her out of that van and threw her into a dumpster. But the van is still there, and Coach Jana walks right past it. And then Linda goes into the school, and Russ goes after her. So, because I was watching it, because when we get to Coach Jana's house, her house, the van is parked like out front. Which would have made sense if like she walked past it and then he followed her. But like, how does he know where she lived? How does he know where any of these girls live? How does he know? I mean, it's a good and bad thing, and I'll kind of get more into it later. But it's like, how did he pick these girls and he's like kind of ever present around them? And the van becomes that kind of ever presence of, now the van's here. That means he's nearby. It's like he doesn't have to be on screen too often. Coach Jana goes up to her house and she's getting ready to put her key in the door, and a drill comes out, like it almost hits her in the face, like in the eye. She's like, "What the?" And she opens it, and it's the lady, not maintenance lady, but was she the handy lady? The peephole driller, that helps. It's the handy lady, not handyman, the handy lady. That was a spoiler that I was going to give away, because this is written and directed by a woman. That's why I'm doing it in Women in Horror Month. But all the main ladies, or all the main characters that normally would be guys in movies, they're women in this movie. It's just kind of funny. So the lady drilling, like the phone lady was a lady instead of a dude. And now the handy person who's doing work on her house, she's drilling out. She's installing a peephole in her door. It's a woman, not a guy. Wink, wink. Nod, nod. It's like, hey, women. 1982, we're fighting back. So she almost hits her. She's like, oh, you scared me. But it's also the drill, because Russ has a drill. So it's supposed to, because this movie, another thing it does, another trope, it has so many jump scares in the first 20 minutes. There's so many, like, which is weird because it's coupled with like 2 people have already died in the first 20 minutes, and we've had like 5 jump scares that didn't involve actual killers. And I'm sure this is not the first movie to do this, but this even has the screeching cat. You know, another checkbox in like the whole, like, it's like, wow, this movie has everything, because it really does. So after we catch up with Coach Jana, we catch up with Trish, who's at home, and she hears a weird noise, and she goes to the front door, and the front door is open like 6 inches. She's like, oh, I must have left the door open, and she closes it. And then she goes into a different room and starts playing piano really loud. And there's been a certain amount of like, be careful, like with her parents being so over, like as a viewer knowing that it's a horror movie, and then like her parents making this big deal. So it's like, it seems like the character should have a little ounce of that, especially since like the door was open, you heard a noise, but you just shut it, and then you go into a different room, and like, I'm just gonna play the piano really loud, where I'm staring at a wall and everything else is behind me. And she starts playing and playing and playing, and then we get another jump scare. It's the neighbor, Mr. Content, which is weird. He's like, oh, I'm sorry, the door was open, so I walked in because nobody responded. Like, do you want me to wait for you? Every Mr. Content scene feels like we're a porn's about to break out, because he's totally like do you want me to wait with you here until your friends arrive? And she's like, well, yeah, I guess that might be a good idea, even though a minute ago she's not scared. She's like, oh, the door's open, I'm gonna close it and then go play piano with my back turned to everything, and everything will be just fine. Now she's like, gee, I don't know, Mr. Content, I don't know if that's a good idea. I'm just waiting for him to be like, well, I fixed that door so I won't open anymore. Maybe you think there's any way you could pay me back? Well, I don't have any money, Mr. Content. Well, I'm sure we can figure something out. But that didn't happen. But there was that feeling, like, is she gonna get it on with her neighbor? And then we see her friends start to arrive. And Valerie's next door. She's like privy to everything going on. But Valerie's at home hanging out with her annoying little sister. Who is kind of weird, because like the more you see her little sister's name's Courtney, and she's like this like young tomboy type girl who talks like she's from the 50s. I don't know, she has a weird vibe, but then the more you see her, because she's wearing these short shorts, like it's like is she the same age as everybody else in this movie? Because she doesn't look like it starts out like when it's just zooming on her face and she's playing it like she's 12, but then the more you see her, it's like, this chick's like the same age. I don't know. Valerie's hanging out with her sister for the night, and she makes her sister Kool-Aid. Which is funny because I noticed she's got the big pack of Kool-Aid. Those of you familiar with Kool-Aid, especially from that era, the big one meant that all you had to do was put it in 2 quarts of water. Like the little ones, you had to add your own sugar. The big ones had everything added to it. You could just pour. Those were for the rich folk. The poor folk had to buy the 20-cent, get your own fucking sugar, bitch, packs. And the rich people would be like, I have Kool-Aid. All I need is water, and they could put it together. But the poor folk is like, well, I have sugar here, and I have 2 ingredients. Rich people have 1 ingredient. Well, okay, poor people have 3 ingredients if you include the water. But she pours it all in, and then she takes like a cup of sugar and puts it on top. It's like, you're making it wrong, bitch. After all of Trish's friends arrive, they're hanging out. They brought like when they first arrived, they don't realize Mr. Content's there, so they're like, oh, we got we brought some liquor and we got some Maui Wowie, you know, weed from Hawaii. And Trish is like, oh yeah, well, that's my neighbor. And they're like, what are you doing in here? And he's like, oh, you girls, you just have fun, and I won't say anything about the weed, the Maui Wowie, and the liquor. Just as long. And he looks at Trish. He's like, just as long as you promise not to tell your parents that I scared you earlier. Like, that's a fair trade. It's like, what is this neighbor doing? Where he's all like, because he didn't. I don't know. If they remake this movie, Matthew McConaughey would play this neighbor. He's kind of that guy. But he's like a lame version. Jeff and Neil are out and about, and they're like, we should go over to that slumber party and scare them. I don't remember who said what. I think it was Jeff's idea. Neil's like, I don't know. I don't know if that's such a good idea. Jeff's like, oh, come on, we could scare them. You know, girls love to scream, which is a funny line. It's like, what? They do? Okay. And so they sneak over and they're spying on him, and we get, I think it's the last scene of nudity that we get, because they're looking through the window and the girls. And this has always seemed weird to me, even when I was like 16 watching this, or 17, however old I was. Because these girls are just talking. And they're like, oh, they're all sitting in the living room. They're just talking, and then they just start like stripping their clothes off and changing. Kind of one by one as the camera points at them all. And it's like, are girls really? Because I know girls and guys are different, but they really just like, just gonna pull my shirt off and change it. Like, while I'm talking in the middle of a sentence, they're like, yeah, and then we went to this, and then they just pull the shirt off. It's like, oh, where's my thing? And then we went over and did this, and they're like pulling their top back down. And then Jeff and Neil are looking through the window, which is every high school kid's fantasy. Is like, what if we went and got a peek and they happened to be naked? And they were, in this case. I think I might be a little out of sequence, because John Miner, Diane's boyfriend, he shows up, and it's a weird thing where it's like they're having this party, but it's girls only. So that makes me think maybe Trish's parents did know, and that's why Trish is being such a stickler for, I'm just trying to have a party for my girlfriend. I mean, she does say it's like, oh, I just want it to be like old times, like trying to kind of showing that, oh, we've been friends for a while, and we used to party like this when we were in 7th grade. Let's just have a 7th grade slumber party again, like the old days, you know, with no boys. And we would just talk about boys and wish they were here, but instead of having the boys over that want to come over, we'll just pretend that they can't. I don't know what the point of the slumber party was, why it wasn't just a party. And John Miner is Diane's boyfriend, and he sneaks over, or drives over, which Rick's, I don't know if I don't know if the garage is attached to the house or not, but like Diane goes out and she's like, well, you just hang out here, just park in the garage. And the garage door is shut, so they open it. And this is a 1982 garage door opener. It's loud as shit. Like, it vibrates out, so it can't be attached. But he parks his car in there, and then it brings it back down. Plus opening and shutting the car door, because I think she rode in with him. And she goes inside, and it's like, how did you not hear that? And this is actually before Jeff and Neil show up. She goes, and then the girls they're going to make daiquiris or something. So she sneaks back in the garage. But while she was gone, Russ Thorne is in the garage, and he's killed John already. Yeah, because she goes out, and she's like, all right, hey, because he's just sitting there propped up behind the wheel. And she's like, all right, hey, and then his head falls off. And she's like, ah! But as she screams, they're inside grinding ice in the blender, so they can't hear her. And she like honks, but they can't hear her. And then Russ kills her. And eventually Jeff and Neil get into the house. Girls find out they're there. And I'm trying to remember what happened first. I think because they ordered a pizza. Which is funny because about the same time, Valerie next door ordered a pizza. And they're waiting for... But eventually the pizza arrives, and they open the door, and the pizza man is like kind of propped up there, and his eyes are drilled out. There's just bloody holes where his eyes used to be. And now they know something actually is going on. And then Jeff and Neil formulate this plan where it's like, okay, we're gonna go get help, and they're gonna like make a run for it and go get some help. And the girl's like, no, you shouldn't do that. It's a bad idea. They're like, well, we can't just sit here. So they go out. Jeff goes out and basically immediately runs into Russ, and Russ starts drilling him. And we see Neil. Neil goes to Valerie's house, and he's banging on the door. And like, this is like the piano scene where like Valerie knows something's up, because like her garbage cans keep getting knocked over, and she's already gone out there once or twice and picked them up. It's like, I wonder what's going on out there. And blah blah. And her sister's like, well, we should go look at that, and that's scary. But at the same time, like something might be going on. Neil's banging on the door, like, hey, Valerie, Valerie. Well, he's not yelling yet, but she's got the TV up so loud she can't hear him banging on the door. And then like he looks back and he sees Russ with his drill. And then that's when he starts like really banging on the door, and he's yelling her name as loud as possible. And she's just like, yeah, staring at the TV. I was like, well, how loud is the TV? And how far away is the TV in like your living room from your front door that somebody's banging on it like for their lives and yelling? And where are the other neighbors? There's like nobody on this street. Like this guy's yelling at the top of his lungs. Why is he in this situation where this is the only door he can bang on? Like as he's watching the killer get closer. Because it's not like, because he's completely aware of it. It's not like Russ like bum rushed him and hurt him, and now he's like hurt and injured and banging for his life. He's like, he's fine. He just knows the killer is like getting closer and closer and closer, and he's just like, oh no, oh no, oh no, oh no, please don't, please don't. Or it's like, dude, you could have ran. You have the advantage. You have your youth. You have that fight or flight gear in your head. You're not carrying a heavy weapon, which he did have. He did have a knife with him. I think him and Jeff both did. He did have a knife. So when Russ actually finally gets up to him, he realizes he brought a knife to a drill fight, and he's like, and he like swings at it and doesn't do him any good. He gets drilled. He gets killed. And then Russ takes him. I don't know, he like drags him away and they disappear. And that's about the point that Valerie's like, is somebody at my door? And then she walks over. She's like, you must be just hearing things. All right, so shortly after this, Jackie like opens the door. She gets killed. So I think we're down because we get. Oh, Mr. Compton, I left that out. Mr. Compton got killed out earlier because when Diane went out earlier looking for firewood, she ran into him and he was looking for snails and killing them because they come out at night. Yeah. He wasn't peeping them. He wasn't being a old pervert or anything. He was killing snails. But then when she left him to bring the firewood back outside, or back inside, good old Russ took care of his old perverted ass. The girls had called Coach Jana to ask a question. They're asking something about the game that was coming up and who would be repping and that kind of thing. And then like they heard something at the door, so they opened it. And I think, I might be wrong, but I think Jana opens it and Russ gets her and they all scream. Yeah, I'm totally out of sequence, because there's a part where they actually eat the pizza that the dead pizza man brought, which was really funny. I was like, what? You're eating that? But it was Jackie who ate it, who was like, well, eating makes me feel better. So they call Coach Jana, they're asking her questions, and that's when they hear something at the door, and Jana opens it, and Jana gets killed, and they start screaming. Somehow the phone, I don't know, I'm not sure why that phone hangs up, but Coach Jana's like on the line so she can hear this. And she's like, what's going on over there? But I don't know if Coach Jana's just comfortable or what, because now the two girls, they're the last one left. It's Kim and Trish. they're the last ones left, and they're like, we got to get the fuck out of here. And I don't know if they just ran from the phone or what, but they bailed, and Coach Jen is like, what should I do? But somehow, well, not somehow. Coach Jana knows that Valerie lives next door, so she calls her and she's like, "Hey, there's something weird going on. Like the girls just started screaming. I don't know if they're playing a prank or anything, but you're right next door. Can you go maybe check it out?" And Valerie's like, "I guess I have been hearing stuff." But at the same time, Coach Jana's like, "Well, maybe it's not a good idea if you go over there because I'm an adult and you're a kid. Maybe I should drive." She's like, "Well, I'm thinking about heading over there, but just kind of listen to see if you can hear anything." So Valerie starts to go and check it out. Kim and Trish go upstairs, which is a no. Don't go up. They go upstairs. They barricade the door with like a bookcase or a dresser or something, and they're talking and they're worrying. And then they do kind of throw out this weird idea though, because they're like, "There's a killer," because they know there's a killer. They're like, somehow they bring up Valerie, but they're like, what if Valerie knows him? What if? And it's kind of funny because Courtney, Valerie's sister, is like, you didn't get invited to that party? And then I think even Kim was like, you think she's having us all killed because you didn't invite her to the party? But it's like, she did invite her to the party. She totally went up to her and said, "Do you want to come to my party?" She had overheard it, so she made up a bullshit excuse to not go because she didn't want to go there and be uncomfortable because she already doesn't know them in the fucking first place because she's the new girl that lives next door. But they keep alluding to like, well, maybe she's mad because you're having a party that you didn't invite her to. It's like, no, you invited her. You're all good. You have no reason to think that she's in on the killing based on that. And even that's a weird reason to just start killing everybody. So, they're in there talking, and the window's open, which is like, if you could barricade the door, I don't know. Second floor, I get it. You don't expect Russ Thorne and his drill to climb up there and sneak in, and you don't hear him at all. You're hypersensitive, hyper aware, but you don't hear a guy with a drill crawl in through your window and just until he's right behind you, until he's ready to turn on and kill you. Because they're like, they hear him, and then they both stop and look at each other. They're both just like, or more like this. Right? Or, I mean like this. And then they look, and they're like, they make a run for it, and he gets Kim. Trish gets it out of the way in time, opens the door, makes a run for it. And then she like disappears. And then Valerie comes over. I don't remember because Valerie does come over with her sister, and they get in there and they look for him. And I don't remember. I'm trying to remember who it was that was it because Valerie and Trish don't look that much different from each other. I mean, they're definitely like Valerie definitely hotter, but the coach shows up, and she's talking to Trish, and then like Russ kind of sneaks in and just drills across her stomach and kills her. Trish makes a run for it. Valerie and her sister come in. This is gonna be so hard to edit. Valerie and her sister come in, and they're kind of looking around because Valerie's like, well, I don't know. I don't think there's anybody here. I guess we could go. And her sister Courtney is like, well, I mean, we're here. Maybe we could have a drink. We could have a beer. And she opens the fridge, and there's like a body coming out of it. It's Kim's body's like kind of like every time she opens the door, Kim's body's kind of like starts to slide out, and then she closes it, and her body goes back in. Which like, wouldn't you think she'd have some resistance? Be like, why won't the fridge shut? It was like if you opened it, it'd be like, oh, I could open. Whoa. Like there should have been some effort. And she does it a couple times. She's like, "Oh, well, come on, we could just stay." And eventually, as you're watching, you're thinking, it's like, oh, they're so close to finding the dead body and realizing that something's up, and they're not going to because they've done it like 3 times and they didn't get it. And now they're gonna leave, but then she opens it the last time and the body falls out. And they're like, "Oh shit!" And so Courtney goes and hides under the like couch, because it's one of those couches that are on legs that like they're hiding, like a blanket's hanging down over the front, and so she hides under there. And I don't remember where Valerie goes, but it's weird because Rex walks in and like just gets under a blanket and lays down, like he's tired or something. But he just lays there. Oh, that's right. He does that, and then the coach comes. Damn it, I'm totally butchering this. Then the coach comes in because Courtney trips him during the struggle. Anyway, long story short, Valerie comes in and saves the day. She gets a machete from Trish's garage. Her machete clashes with Russ's drill bit and breaks it in half, which is the metaphorical slicing off of the penis. And now he's disempowered. And then she chops his hand off and he starts screaming like a bitch, which I'd probably scream like that too if my hand got cut off, or I'd just be in shock and just be like, but the way he screamed is so long. And it's funny. And then she like cuts him again and pushes him in the pool. And now he's dead. No more Russ. But then he climbs out, doing that last final scare that they mentioned in Scream. When you think the killer's dead and he comes back. Which is what's brilliant about this film. It's like it does all the things. Like if you watch Scream, like go watch Scream and then watch this movie. Like Scream, everything that Scream breaks down happens in this movie. And this movie is like 1982. I mean, it's before. I mean, it's not the first slasher movie, but it totally like it does like all the cliche things, but it does it first. Not first, like because Halloween's really close to this. Because even Friday the 13th does a lot of this, and it's a slasher, but it's just it's different. I don't know, maybe because they're at camp, but it's just not quite the same thing. But this movie nails everything. It's like every little cliche and trope that you could have. This movie just covers it. It's like, how did everybody watch this movie and then they started writing more slashers based on what this movie said? Because it does it all. The only weird thing is the final girl situation, which is kind of weird. But it also gives us the twist. But it's weird because they both live. Trish and Valerie both live. But Trish is the one who actually kills Russ. Trish is the one that actually kills Russ. But Valerie almost did. And Trish is like the good guy, the wholesome girl, and all of that, but she's the one having the party. She's the one in the movie. She's the main character. You know, it opens up with Trish. It takes place at her house. Her parents are out of town. Like, everything has become because of her. And Valerie is like, but Valerie's the new girl and kind of the goody-goody virgin, staying home with her sister, taking care of her little sister, and all that. So it's kind of weird. It's like, well, who's the final girl? That's probably the only thing that this movie misses from like all the tropes is like, well, the final girl, because in a way, like to me, the badass is Valerie, but the final girl, like technically, I don't know, it's a toss up because technically the final girl is Trish, but in a way it's Valerie. There's two. Like they should have. That's the flaw in this movie. They should have killed Trish and let Valerie be the final girl, do the final killing, because Valerie was the one who like stayed home. Valerie was the Laurie Strode of this movie, who was like, okay, you guys are gonna go out party while I gotta babysit the kid, and because she was watching her sister while shit was going on next door, you know, in her neighborhood, and then it ended up, except she went to the trouble, whereas I think Laurie Strode, the trouble came to her. No, I totally forgot. No. So, all right. So anyway, still, this is the best slasher movie of all time. And the greatest thing about this movie is that, well, not the greatest thing about this movie, but what I love about this movie is because slashers got kind of a bad rap. It's sort of like, because they objectify women, and because it's half-naked women getting chased and killed for, for essentially leaving the kitchen and having lives, It's like, oh, I want to go out and have sex and do all this stuff. It's like, I can see how slasher movies are kind of anti-feminism, because they're kind of like, oh, every time a woman tries to do something that's okay for guys to do, they get killed. Like, even this movie shows that the phone chick gets killed. The carpenter didn't. The gym teacher got killed. That used to be a man's job. But this movie's fun because, well, it's not fun. The cool thing about this is, like, when people want to say, like, oh, this movie objectifies women and it treats in movies or this, because I've heard like Friday the 13th and just slasher in general, they just get shit on. So this movie's fun because the women in horror thing, people are like, whoa, did you know that was directed by a woman? Or people be like, oh, did you like See No Evil 2? It's like, no, I didn't like it. It wasn't very good. Well, it was written and directed by the Shashka sisters. It's like, I'm supposed to think it's better because it was made by a girl. So, oh, that movie is awesome for considering a girl wrote it. It's kind of a weird street you go down once you divide those. But this movie's fun because it's like, you can throw it back in the face where it's like, well, I don't know, it objectifies women and it's everything wrong with slasher, because it is everything wrong. It's the handbook, it's the blue book to everything wrong with slasher movies. It's written and directed by a woman, or by two women. That makes it awesome, where it's like, in your face, it works, it's fun, and women wrote it, so fuck off. All right, I'm gonna wrap this up because this is over an hour. Holy shit. Goddamn. The Badass Award goes to Valerie for going over and trying to save the girls, even though they were bitches to her earlier. What did we learn? Survival tips! Don't go upstairs to hide. And don't split up. When choosing a power tool as a weapon, pick one that is battery operated.